All righty. Welcome back to another episode of Two Plane Sports. Today is Monday, September 12th, the day that Brandon is going off to basic training. It is now going to be the Brum and Jose show. Probably as you're watching this, he's probably about to get on a plane or he's on a plane going wherever he's going. So best of luck to him. He'll be back in December. So I know some people will be excited. I know some people will be very disappointed. And we'll just have to wait till the third member is back. Today, we're going to recap the OU Kent State game. OU's defense looked really strong again. Another Sooner win. We're going to be talking some reactions to the AP poll that came out on Sunday, and then also just recapping some general college football, and then recapping our bets and just what the updated record is for us overall, and just some thoughts on a couple of those games if we have any. So, but before we get oh my gosh, before we get into it, we just want to say we appreciate it. Hit the subscribe button, like the video. We're over 5,000 subscribers. Just hit the subscribe button. It's free, easy. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Everything's linked in the description below. If you're listening to us on Apple or Spotify, follow the channel there and leave us a review. Jose, we are planning to have a pre-game show on Saturday morning, correct, against Nebraska.
Sir,
Yeah,
bright and
so
early.
bright and early. Since it's 11 a.m. kickoff, we're going to be going at 9 a.m. Central, like we did for week one. Since we won't be at the game like we were this past weekend, that's why we didn't have it. So make sure to turn that notification bell on so you know when we go live for that Saturday morning, 9 a.m. Central. There's a lot to talk about with Nebraska, obviously, with the news coming out on Sunday. Okay, let's get into the OU Kent State game. 33-3, Oklahoma wins pretty comfortably after they decided to wake up and the offense started to get rolling. Kent State scored first kind of in the middle of the second quarter with a field goal. After that, Oklahoma scored 33 unanswered points. I guess, what's your takeaway? Who's the big performer? And then I'll give them as well. What do you think?
I know there was like at half of the fan base that was not a fan of the game. There was another half of the fan base that was looking at the bright side. For being the pessimist of the show, I think this game was actually really, really good for Oklahoma. One, it showed that they can get up from adversity. Like, I think we can all agree, terrible first half, absolutely dog shit. It should have been better. But Dillon Gabriel, Brent Venables, Levy, I don't think Roof really had to do much to motivate his defense. The defense was stout from the beginning, but they showed that they can make adjustments after a bad first half and execute after making those adjustments. Like it was really a tale of two halves in this game. Oklahoma really had a tough time doing anything on the offensive side first half. I think the fact Kent State's defense looked good. They were prepared for the offense. We talked about it in last week's video. The offense really isn't that different when you compare Oklahoma's to Kent State's. Very up tempo, a lot of RPOs, and their quarterback, if he has any eligibility left, which I was assume he would, because I don't think he's a sophomore. So I'm assuming he has at least an extra year because of the 2020 COVID year. I would not be surprised if he hits a transfer portal at the end of the year. I would not be surprised if Cephas hits a transfer portal, or Cooper, their running back. That guy is a large human being, not stature wise, but he is thick and could be a really big piece to a bigger program. Regardless of that, I think Oklahoma did well in stopping the passing game. When we did our pregame or our preview to the game, we mentioned Cephas. If you can stop Cephas, you can keep this offense pretty tamed. And for the most part, we did. We were talking about it a little bit before we started recording. They only got to the red zone one time, and they had a fourth down opportunity to extend that drive, and Danny Stutzman was able to come in, get a tackle for loss, and we got the ball back. I think it was on like 23 or 24. Like It was a very good game by the defense. Danny Stutzman is a man possessed. I am all in on that guy's going to be, hopefully, he's a first round draft pick at worst, day two. There's no way he falls past the third round when he makes it to that point in his football career. But I'm excited by the defense for sure. This defense is night and day from what we've had over the last 10 years. And the offense, I think they're still getting to the rhythm, but there's no reason to panic.
I agree. And the thing is this defense, granted, Oklahoma only won 33-3. You look around college football this past weekend, and we'll talk more about it later, but Clemson only won by like 27. Georgia beat Samford by like 30. Texas lost to Alabama by 1. So while Oklahoma didn't beat them by 50 or 60, Oklahoma still beat them by 30 points. And I still think that this team is growing together. They're gelling under the coaching and the play calling and all this stuff. And I still think that they're implementing more schemes, more plays, more everything as the season's going. So I think they're going to have a little more installed for next week, for Saturday against Nebraska. And I expect more of complex calls and things like that. But talking about this game, I mean, I think I saw that this is the first time since 2013 that Oklahoma's only given up 1 touchdown in a 2-game stretch. I mean, last year or the year before that, Kent State would have scored 25 to 35 points on Oklahoma, most likely. Pretty easy because Cooper is a good running back, and you got Cephas out there as a wide receiver, and their quarterback isn't bad. With an offense like that, they would have put up 25, 30, 35 points on Oklahoma last year, but they did. They only gave up 3, and you can't necessarily blame. I mean, the defense was what was holding it together for a long time. I mean, they were spending a lot of time on the field. The offense just could not get going. And I think I don't think it's Gabriel's fault. I know some people were upset that, Gabriel's not that good or whatever. At the end of the day, Dillon Gabriel ended up throwing 21 to 28, 296 yards and 3 touchdowns. I mean, he had a very solid, efficient day. I still think he's getting comfortable. I don't think he'll be comfortable probably until the TCU game, probably after 4 games or so, 4 or 5 games before the Texas game. I feel like that's when he's going to really start to shine. But I mean, looking along that defensive line, Reggie Grimes had another huge game. Jalen Redmond looked good. Ethan Downs looked good. The defensive front looks really good. They were causing turnovers. They played well. And I mean, with an offense like Kent State, and I know it's Kent State at the end of the day, to hold them to only 3 points, that's impressive. Because I still will stand by that. I think Kent State's better than UTEP. And maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like Kent State's better than them.
And I spent some of the day today listening to other people, maybe some more national, some a little bit more local, talking about, Kent State and the fact that they did have a lead on Oklahoma at one point in the game, and Oklahoma was struggling on the offensive side. I mean, look, and they compared it saying that Oklahoma didn't score. One of them compared it to Oklahoma only scoring 33 and Washington scored 45 last week. Kent State also scored 20 last week. Well, again, Oklahoma they gave up 1 field goal. And that kicker, it might sound mean, but he showed that he has a tendency to miss. He had an opportunity to make it 6-33, and he missed the second field goal on the next drive that Kent State had after they scored the first field goal. I think it really was just, again, we only allowed them in the red zone 1 time, and it really wasn't even an opportunity to score. On the offensive side, I agree. Dillon Gabriel did what the defense gave him. For those that think that he needs to be benched or that there's better out there, sure. I mean, maybe there are more talented quarterbacks than Dillon Gabriel, but Dillon Gabriel's doing exactly what he needs to do, taking the opportunities that the defense gives him. That's one of the criticisms we had of last year's team at the beginning of the season with Spencer Rattler. And again, like, it's just an objective criticism here. He puts the ball in danger a lot, and that's just his game plan. The way he plays, he has probably the most talented arm in college football, arguably. I watched some of the South Carolina game, and we'll talk about that later. But Dillon Gabriel doesn't put the ball in danger. He puts it right where it needs to be. If it has to be a boring game for him and just dinking and dumping the ball off, getting 4 or 5 yard passes and letting the receiver make the play, he's going to do it. And when he has his opportunity to throw a deep ball, he's extremely accurate. Again, last year, even with Caleb Williams, he had a tendency to either underthrow the ball a lot on deep passes, and Spencer Rattler was not the most accurate on deep balls. Dillon Gabriel, I think, is way more accurate than both of those on the deep pass, at least comparing him to last year. And again, doing exactly what he needs to do to put Oklahoma in a position to win a game. Like he's not making mistakes. And I think that's the biggest thing with Dillon Gabriel right now, and why he could be in New York when this season's all said and done.
Yeah, and you look at the offense as a whole. I mean, you look at the running back room. Eric Gray, 10 carries, 71 yards. Marcus Major, 5 carries for 38 yards and a touchdown. That move he put on the defender for that touchdown was pretty nice. But yeah, they both averaged over 7 yards a carry, and they didn't really necessarily need to go, really load up Eric Gray or Marcus Major with a ton of carries, because there's no point, because later in the season, when it's mid-October, late November, in that time frame, they're going to be running Eric Gray and Major a ton. Javonte Barnes got some reps, which was nice. But looking at the defense as well, I mean, Danny Stutzman, like you said, it was flying around. Justin Harrington got a pick. I think also the mindset of OU fans, and I have to think about it the same way, is all we've known in the last 10 years is we have to outscore people to beat them. I mean, that's what you do. That's what you do in general. I understand that's the concept. You have to score more than your opponent. But we never had the confidence where we could go in a low-scoring battle and let our defense actually win us a game. Our defense was going to win us that game, even if it was 7-3. They weren't going to give up any more points. And I think the mindset of, we need to score 50. Yeah, but I mean, at the end of the day, Ohio State beat them by 33. I mean, it's not like anyone really put up 70-something points on anyone this weekend. And why that is, I don't know. So I just think we need to hit the pause button and remember. Now, if we start having these issues, these slow starts against, a Kansas State or a Texas or someone like that, that's when it can become more concerning. But I just feel like this team is still learning. This is like extended training camp to me, fall ball. I mean, they're still trying new things, figuring it out. They don't, they're still trying to get all their starters put together and figure it out along the offensive line. I think everything's fine. I mean, everyone's freaking out. At the end of the day, they're 2-0, and I feel totally different about this 2-0 this year as compared to last year's 2-0. I mean, last year's 2-0, I felt like in all season we were just holding our breath the entire time. I felt like there's no way we keep winning. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. I think you put it perfectly comparing last year to this year. This year, even if we drop a game, like, I wouldn't be worried, right? I think it would just be like the other team outplayed us that day. But last year, the games we lost, it was Oklahoma made mistakes and could have won, but they just didn't. Like, a lot needed to be cleaned up. And one of the criticisms you had about the team last week was cleaning up the pre-games, the pre-snap stuff, false starts, all that jazz. I think we did a little better. I still think that there needs to be a little bit of improvement there for, again, big games, OU Texas, and we'll talk about Texas a little later, but that's going to be a big game where you don't want to be the one making the mistakes, to give them an opportunity or more opportunities to either stop Oklahoma's offense or give them more opportunities to score the ball, because Texas could be a very dangerous team depending on the makeup of that squad come, OU Texas.
Yeah, and also something to think about is the time of possession in this game. Kent State had the ball for 36 minutes. OU had it just shy of 24 minutes, and they had it just a little over 36 minutes. OU forced two turnovers. They still only gave up 3 points, and then they were on the field for over half the game. We can't fail to mention Marvin Mims. The passes, the end of the half, where that touchdown pass to Mims was on a rope. It was extremely accurate. I think Marvin Mims is happy. He probably deep down, he knows he made the right decision to come back, because Levy basically told him, you're our guy and you're going to be the number one in this offense. Drake Stoops, his efforts off the charts, and that's like what Venables wants. The uncommon effort for the uncommon man, and Drake Stoops is that guy. That the photo of him jumping into the end zone with his shoe off and everything else, that just seems to be what this team is and what they embody is, and Drake Stoops wasn't the highest recruited guy, walked on, got a scholarship, hard worker. And I think that's the culture that Venables is trying to establish. And so they look really good. I'd like to see another receiver really establish themselves as with Mims. I felt like Weiss, he had a few catches. No one really, but there was really no need for someone to, slinging the ball a ton of times in the second half. So I'm curious to see against Nebraska. And I still don't even know if I don't think that game's even close anyway. So we really might not even see everything, because OU might just control that game the entire time.
Yeah. Nebraska is a shit show right now. But yeah, that ball to end the first half to Marvin Mims, probably one of the best passes of the weekend. I think again, when we're talking about deep balls, Dillon Gabriel's accuracy in the deep ball versus Caleb Williams and Spencer Rattler last year. If we put that exact same pass to last year's quarterbacks, I think there's a good chance that the defensive back gets a hand on it or is able to tip it out of Marvin's hands. It was put in the right spot where he's the only one that could touch it and not really in danger. Like, those are the kind of plays that will, one, get Dillon to New York, and two, could potentially get him in the draft this year if he continues to do what he's doing.
Yeah, for sure. So overall, can't complain. I'm curious to see what everyone who's watching this, what they've got to say regarding this game. It's not perfect. Never thought it would be. It's only game number 2. And I feel like this team is still a work in progress. But if this is a work in progress and they keep winning, you can't complain at the end of the day, because there's other big time programs that lost this past weekend to, Notre Dame, Texas A&M. We could be in their shoes. So, and OU definitely was not really ever in danger of losing this game. So now we can move on. We can do a little more of like a college football general overall and AP poll reactions. As I alluded to a little bit earlier, Notre Dame ended up losing to Marshall. Texas A&M lost to App State. I did take App State plus 19 in our betting. Not that I ever thought that App State would truly, outright win that. I mean, that's insane. Both those programs, especially for Jimbo and Texas A&M, people are sounding the alarms down there. I mean, Texas A&M didn't run the ball and didn't pass the ball for more than 100 yards each against App State. That North Carolina scored 63 on them the week before. That's pretty bad.
And I know we talked about it a little bit before we started recording, and I think this is the perfect time to bring up a big prospect that Oklahoma is targeting. That defensive line for A&M couldn't do anything to get the ball back for that offense. Like, they were doing whatever they wanted to them in the run game, and A&M's defensive line couldn't really do anything to stop it. I'm trying to find the time of possession difference here real quick, but any defensive lineman that wants to go to A&M right now is probably really questioning that, because why would you go to a place that isn't going to coach you to stop a run or can't put you in a position to stop the run? Like, that defensive line looked terrible. And last year's class clearly is not impacting the performance on the field right now.
No, not at all. And, obviously Oklahoma's recruiting David Hicks, and we were under the impression that David Hicks was going to be at OU this past weekend. David Hicks, from my understanding, actually went to Texas A&M this weekend. And so he got to witness that live. I think that's pretty good. That's got to play into Oklahoma's favor. It's one thing to lose a game, and these recruits aren't expecting teams to go perfect every single year. But when you lose a game like in App State, or in Notre Dame's case, you lose to Marshall, and then you've got 2023 five-star Peyton Bowen, who's already been on the fence about decommitting. You see that happening. I mean, Freeman is 0-2 to start the year. He's 0-3 in his first 3 games as being the head coach. And I mean, that's a red flag. I mean, it has to be. A&M then is also in on Peyton Bowen, but then Peyton Bowen sees that. Feeling good about Peyton Bowen. Hopefully we'll have an update on him later this week. Hopefully he's committed to, or at least decommitted from Notre Dame and reopened his recruitment. Looking at Kentucky took care of Florida. They jumped up in the top 10 at number 9. Arkansas, I had them in my top 10 before the season started, because I felt like KJ Jefferson and Sam Pittman, they're a pretty solid football team, not the best football team, but they took care of South Carolina without any issues. And BYU beat Baylor, and they've got another big game. It's BYU and Oregon this weekend. So that's going to be a big test for them. But overall, you look at the top 4. I mean, yeah, Alabama, they struggled with Texas, but I don't know. I mean, this is why I didn't want to bet the Texas Alabama game, because I just feel like when it's that big of a game, a lot of times teams will rise up to their competition. I felt like that's what Texas did. And obviously they've lost Quinn Ewers, now potentially for Red River as well.
Yeah, so that I saw that's the earliest he could possibly come back. So we'll see what happens for Texas come that game, and we'll keep everyone updated on that. But yeah, I mean, I think the fact, obviously Texas winning would have helped them a lot more, but that loss honestly made them look way better than Notre Dame and A&M looked. Like A&M was ranked number 6 going into this weekend. Notre Dame, I believe, was in the top 10. 8.
Yeah.
So 2 top 10 teams lose to group of 5 teams. And Texas is able to, I mean, it was at home, so it did help a lot, is able to challenge what a lot of people thought was the unquestioned number 1 team, possibly one of the best teams in college football history. And it went down to the wire. I think that was surprising to me. If you guys watched our show last Friday, I believed that Alabama was going to blow them out, but I did not factor in the home field advantage that Texas had, because Nick Saban and Alabama have avoided true non-conference road games for the longest time. And this is an example of why they shouldn't, because they looked extremely undisciplined. Alabama looked like they could be a 9-win team if they did what they do against. If they keep repeating what they did against Texas for the rest of the season, I would not be surprised if Florida beats them, and they lose 2 or 3 outside of Florida, lose another 1 or 2 games in their division of the SEC, because that is just you can't forgive that. As Nick Saban, like Will Anderson had like 2 or 3 offsides called. He's supposed to be if not the best player in college football, at least the best defensive player in college football, and he couldn't even line up correctly. Like, it's the small things that ended up in the first half, at least giving Texas a lot more confidence. And yes, Alabama definitely got a lot of forgiveness from refs because there was the pass interference call that didn't their pass interference play that didn't get called in the end zone, where Texas probably could have gotten a touchdown in that scenario because it would have given them an opportunity for Bijan to run one in. And Quinn Ewers was doing whatever he wanted to that Alabama defense. I think this weekend made it, to me at least, and I don't know about you, bro, but it made the 12-team playoff a lot more interesting going forward once that is established. Because if Alabama in any way is not in doesn't have home field, if they just lose the SEC championship and they have to go on the road for a game, that road team, if it's a place like Texas or in Arkansas, a big time program that's got a huge fan base, the home field advantage is going to be enough to at least fluster Nick Saban and the team that he's got on the field.
For sure. And I fully support the 12-team playoff because I feel like the 4-team playoff has just made the talent just accumulate onto a handful of teams. Now you're going to give the opportunity to, quite a few other programs to be able to attract top talent. You'll have more of this parity. And I think that's where the league, where college football is going to go. Texas looked strong. Not many times do you're unranked going into a game, you lose the game, and then you get put into the top 25. They're now 21. That I can't tell you the last time that's ever happened. That just almost never happens. They look solid. The question will be, will they be able to get through without Quinn Ewers, be able to get up for these other games that aren't quite as big, and be able to handle their business? And that's something that Texas has not been able to do in a long time. And I don't know if they're going to be able to do it. I know I picked them to go to the Big 12 championship, but with Quinn Ewers being on the sidelines now, something tells me that they might be dropping another game in the next month or so. But and then Oklahoma State jumped up to 8th after they took care of Arizona State. USC is 7th. They are now behind, and they are one behind Oklahoma. They took care of Stanford pretty comfortably. So USC's there. I mean, they're, as much as we don't care for them, and I know if Brandon was here, he'd be freaking out that I even brought up USC at number 7. But if they keep winning, which I don't think they will, they're going to be in a position to go to the playoffs if they can hold it all together. I just don't think they will, but they're in a position to.
I'll take a little bit of Brandon's mentality here. I do think they are slightly overranked. I think Arkansas should actually be a little higher, given that if I'm thinking of it correctly, they're the only team in the towards the top of the rankings that have beat, one, a ranked team, and two, the South Carolina team that was expected to have like an 8 or 9 win season this coming into the year. Like South Carolina, no, in no way do people believe they're going to be in position to be in a playoff, to have an argument for a playoff spot. But going into the year, a lot of people expected them to have a 9-win season at least. I think last year they won 7 or 8. They expected an improvement. Not saying that they're not going to have an improvement once they get further into their schedule, but I mean they've taken care of business against 2 very talented teams.
They definitely have, and I do agree. I think USC is getting a bias and definitely a bump from the national media because they want USC to be back. We won't really see what USC is made of until they play Utah, because that conference is pretty soft. Their schedule is pretty soft. It's not overly difficult. So that's all I've got on the AP poll reaction. Do you have any other teams that we didn't talk about that you felt like we should?
Not on the AP poll, but for the Big 12 in general, Kansas might be a team. They're 2-0. I don't know the last time they were 2-0 to start off the season. They don't look god awful. Like, it's not just, oh, it's Kansas, we can, essentially a non-conference game. Like, it's like that game is going to be one where like you might have to give some effort, like a slow start. Just looking forward to the Oklahoma game. If Oklahoma has a slow start against Kansas, that might be a situation where they might be in some legit trouble.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think Oklahoma does not run into that like they did last year, but I do think Kansas is going to catch a few teams throughout the Big 12 that are going to be overlooking them. And Kansas very well might win 4 games this year. And that might as well be, like the playoffs for them. So, they're moving in the right direction. I did look up their coach, and he was at Buffalo, and he put together I think it was 3 consecutive 10-win seasons before he went to Kansas. So he's coaching. He's a good coach. I wouldn't be surprised if he starts to turn around Kansas. He's going to get scooped up by someone bigger, because if you can turn around Kansas, you're probably a pretty darn good coach. So,
I think there's a good chance they go into the Oklahoma game 4-2. They play Houston next, who Holgerson has not looked very good there this year so far.
Yeah.
Duke right after, who is not a good football program. They are 2-0, but I mean, I think that it's really just, I guess it's a coin flip there, but there's a good chance Kansas can win that. Then they've got Iowa State, TCU. I mean, who knows with Iowa State? They just beat Iowa, but Iowa's probably got the worst offense in the country in the history of college football potentially. TCU probably a loss there, but like 4 wins going into the Oklahoma game for Kansas is not out of the picture.
Yeah, maybe they end up with five wins on the season. Get yourself a bet in on Kansas on a
take their overs on the win.
Yeah. So speaking of betting, we can recap our bets going into this week. Jose and I were both 8-5. Brandon was 10-3, and I believe I talked with him. Brandon went he went 3-4, I believe. I can't remember, but he ended up having a losing week. Obviously he's done with the betting, and so it'll just be Jose and I going back and forth. So we were both 8-5. I picked 5 games. Jose picked 7. I went 3-2. Missouri versus K-State on the under of total points hit for me. I took App State plus 19. That was comfortable all the way through. I took OU Kent State under 72.5 points. That was comfortable all the way through. My 2 losses are Southern Cal against Stanford, the under of 67.5. They ended up scoring a total of 69 points. So that was really, really a tough break. And then I did take that Iowa anemic defense, or that anemic offense, and I took Iowa minus 3.5. And I don't know what I was thinking, because I thought, maybe they can bounce back. It's a rivalry game. They're going to be ready to play. No, that offense is horrendous. So 3-2. So I'm at 11-7 overall.
So I'm 10-10. My overall record, like Brum, I went into the weekend 8-5. I bet on 7 games, ended up going 2-5 this weekend. Not a great weekend. Definitely took a hit on the bank account in my FanDuel book, but I hit on Arkansas minus 8, and then Iowa under 39.5. I will be betting Iowa every single weekend under until it gets like ridiculously low. But for the foreseeable future, I will be betting under for every Iowa game. Lost the Oklahoma cover 33.5, lost Texas Tech, which that one I'm disappointed in. They did win by 3, but I had them at 3.5 as favorites. And then Stanford and Baylor, the more I watch of them, the more I'm confident that is not going to be a tricky game, as long as this defense looks as it has these first 2 games.
I agree. I don't think Baylor is really going to be that big of a threat. And I can't remember who you and Brandon had in the Big 12 championship. I know you both had OU. Who did you have there playing Oklahoma? Was it OU? Was it OSU? Was it Baylor?
It was probably Baylor, thinking back, but like it's probably Oklahoma State or Texas. Like it's got to be one of the orange schools.
Yeah, I agree. So anyway, still overall you're 10-10. I'm 11-7. It's still not bad. I mean, you just got to be going for 55%, and that's a winner right there. So we'll make sure to put out some more bets on Friday. Jose might go up to 12 games. You never know. He might just start giving him picks on every single game. You guys, do you have any final thoughts? Are you going to do the is it the Jose Brandon in the video challenge?
Sure. We didn't talk about it. We can hit on it real quick. Scott Frost, canned from Nebraska. Honestly, to my surprise, it's not Whipple that's taking over the team. It's their associate head coach. I can't remember his name right now, but going into this weekend, we're essentially going to play a team that has absolutely nothing to lose with a coach that has absolutely nothing to lose. What do you guys think? Should Nebraska have waited the extra 3 weeks to save $7.5 million? Or was it a good idea for them to can Frost after losing the first game in probably the worst fashion possible with the terrible onside kick call? And then last weekend versus, did they play Georgia Southern? They played
Yeah, Georgia
a Group
Southern.
of 5 school where they lost when they probably shouldn't have, given the talent that they have.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, it's a little surprising to me. I mean, what's the difference of a few weeks? I'd save the money, but at the end of the day, I guess if you got the money, just get rid of them now. I said about a month ago, I thought that OU would get Scott Frost fired. Well, he got fired a week too early. I still think OU goes into Nebraska and takes care of him, no problem. The betting line did open. I think I saw OU was a 16-point favorite initially, and that has since shifted to OU only being a 13.5-point favorite. So I hope it keeps shifting that way, because I am taking Oklahoma whatever the point is for the favorite. I'm taking it. If it's 13, 14, 15, I'm taking it, because I think Oklahoma beats them by 17, 20 to 21 points.
I'm with you there.
So, yeah, I think this is the first week that you really see this team really come together. I really believe that they will. And then at that point, they're going to make a statement of Nebraska. Not that Nebraska is that good of a team to make a statement against, but it is a rivalry and it is a Big Ten opponent. So, but that's all I've got. Be sure to do the Jose Brandon individual challenge and like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn the notification bell on. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and Apple or Spotify. Everything's linked in the description below. And we will catch you guys on Wednesday, probably for recruiting or a game preview.